Good morning. Good morning, Chief Moore, Commissioner Soboroff, Commissioner Bonner, City Attorney, Mr. Inspector General, Ms. Farber. Welcome, members of the public. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. It is 9:30 in the morning, and this is a special meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Commissioner Briggs absent. Commissioner Decker,
Present.
Commissioner Bonner,
Here.
Commissioner Kalanche absent, and Commissioner Soboroff.
Here.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Also present, we have the Chief of Police, the Inspector General, the City Attorney, and sitting in for the Executive Director, we have Senior Management Analyst Farber. Madam Vice President.
Thank you very much. Welcome to members of the public. Public comment will be held today on item 2 on the agenda, to which we will dedicate a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public are reminded that they may address any item on today's agenda for 1 minute for each item, or any item in public comment that pertains to a matter before the Board of Police Commissioners. Each speaker can be given a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public are also reminded that all comments should be addressed to the Board of Police Commissioners, and any attack or conversation with a member of the public will not be permitted, and we will move on to the next speaker. With that, the first item on our agenda is the report of the Chief of Police. Chief Moore.
As Vice President, thank you, Commissioner Soboroff, Commissioner Bonner. Good morning, Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Inspector General. Ms. Farber, thank you for ably sitting in for Mr. T. Fink and his well-deserved time away. As I do each week, I'm going to talk first about our COVID-19 update. And with that, I'll go into significant events, including an officer-involved shooting that occurred yesterday, and then our crime and personnel numbers. Regarding COVID-19, this last week, much as we have in the county, we've experienced an increase in the number of new COVID cases, with 54 new COVID-19 positive tests. That is a doubling, if you will, from the week prior. There are some late reports within these numbers. And of those 54 new cases, 47 of them were of department employees that were fully vaccinated, which is approximately 87%, which continues the ongoing trend in that area. With these numbers, I'm thankful that there have been no serious hospitalizations, that these cases remain relatively mild. They do involve an officer being quarantined or members of or employees for as many as 10 days, and then they are returning back to work. We do have 15 long haul cases. Those remain. Again, no hospitalizations, but in these long haul recoveries, there was an earlier question by a community member about how many of these individuals had been previously vaccinated. That answer is there's 6 of the 15 had been previously vaccinated. And again, I'm thankful that we continue to see them in their efforts to fully recover from this virus. Next, in talking about significant events or my attendance at various community events and other instances this week. First, I want to report on that I did attend the Sunland Tujunga Neighborhood Council meeting last Wednesday night. This was in response to some recurring questions or comments, remarks by during public comment of some personnel moves and situations involving the Foothill area in the northeast part of the San Fernando Valley. So I spent the evening with the council. I want to thank them. I thank them then for their participation in government, in their community, and building for a successful portion of that part of the San Fernando Valley. I did provide my perspective relative to recent personnel moves and how limited we are as a department. And I am, as a general manager, from discussing personnel matters because of state confidentiality laws. And with that, though, I did address directly that the local council member there did not direct nor ask for the move of anyone. There's been recurring remarks about that, and I wanted to attend that meeting and speak to this issue directly as a means of being responsive to concerns and misinformation or perceptions that exist out there. As a reminder to everyone, including within the organization, Chief of Police by city charter is responsible solely for the assignment of personnel. I take that responsibility very seriously. I do take input from stakeholders throughout the organization, as well as commissioners, elected officials, business owners, residents, and others. But the day-to-day operations and the assignment of personnel is mine and mine alone. It's my responsibility. The buck stops here. And the assignment of personnel is not directed by a council member any more than it's directed by a community member. That is the responsibility of the general manager, and that is the chief of police. Next, I attended another in a series of community safety partnership meetings in the Gonzac Village Town Hall meeting. There's an opportunity to hear from a number of community members there about what's working well, challenges that they still see. There's a local liquor store that was challenging them as far as being a haven for individuals to cause and create violence in circumstances that create tensions and uncertainty in their community, as well as a couple other issues. And what I was proud about was that in each of these instances, the local command from Community Safety Partnership and Chief Tangarides was able to speak to the SARA projects that were ongoing and the problem-solving efforts and the initiatives to improve the quality of life and the sense of safety in those neighborhoods. I also attended on Saturday our LAPRAC annual memorial run. I want to thank members of our senior staff as well as hundreds of officers that attended that. It's called a memorial run. Cindy Moore and myself, we walked the course, but we did enjoy a morning of camaraderie and the ability to remember our fallen. This, of course, followed our Veterans Day as a nation on the Friday, the day before. And it was an opportunity for us to just remind ourselves of the sacrifice and the dedication of our personnel, as well as our veterans that have kept this country free and whether they're last full measure or they're retired or they're active today, we're proud of them, and we support our veterans as well as members of the organization dedicated to public safety. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce breakfast and politics. It was a good session of a breakfast meeting. We spoke for about an hour. It was a Zoom session as well. Talked about the pressing matters of public safety, our efforts and initiatives within the Los Angeles Police Department, and our dependents, and really interactions, interrelated conversations with our business community as well as our other stakeholders for the ongoing effort of improving safety here in Los Angeles. Yesterday also was a solemn day, as I attended, as well as others within the Los Angeles Police Department, to Chief El Monte Chief Ben Lowry's memorial service, a man who unfortunately left us too soon, 45 years of age, died of cancer, leaving a family and a number of young children behind. It was a solemn day, but also a day of celebration of a life well led, and to see his contributions to El Monte as a police department, as well as growing up in that community and being a true stakeholder and a contributor, he was someone that all of us should be proud of as far as the life he led, and certainly an inspiration for all of us as to how we conduct ourselves. Yesterday, there was, in the midst of that service, there was an officer-involved shooting that did not strike the suspect or the individual. This occurred in the Newton area. This occurred at approximately 9:30 in the morning in the area of Adams Boulevard in San Pedro. Yesterday, uniformed Newton patrol officers received a radio call of a woman that had what appeared to be a gun at a strip mall located at the 2500 block of San Pedro Street. On arrival, the officers observed the individual in front of the Burger King restaurant in possession of what appeared to be a firearm. The individual was yelling at officers as she waved the weapon in multiple directions, including pointing the weapon at officers, members of the community, and placing it against her own head. Officers made several attempts to gain verbal compliance from her, but each attempt failed. She then walked away from the officers in a westerly direction and at times ran from them while still in possession of this weapon. The officers followed her in their vehicles while communicating with each other, as well as ordering her to drop the weapon. An impromptu tactical plan was developed amongst the officers at the scene, including less lethal and lethal designations. The individual continued walking westbound, attempting to flee from the officers into a residential area. At one point, the individual pointed her handgun or weapon at one of the officers, resulting in the deployment of a less lethal launcher, a single round. She was struck by that round. Also, simultaneously, another officer on scene discharged his firearm at the suspect, at her, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. She was not struck by the officer's gunfire. Immediately thereafter, a third officer discharged his 40 millimeter less lethal weapon at her, striking her a second time. She was still in possession of this weapon and ran away approximately half a block before dropping the weapon in the street and running into a laundromat located at the 400 block of East Adams Boulevard. There, she was taken into custody by responding officers. No officers were injured during the incident. She did sustain 2 welts and bruising to her buttocks area from the less lethal munitions that were deployed. She was transported to a local hospital, treated, and released and cleared for booking. The investigation revealed that the weapon she was in possession of was a replica 6mm blue steel BB style replica handgun. It was made to represent a semi-automatic pistol. Later today, we'll be pushing out via media release a picture of the weapon that was recovered at the scene, reportedly held by her. The weapon did not contain BBs in the chamber or magazine. Force Investigation Division responded to the location, assumed investigative responsibility. She has been identified as Antonio Giuliano, female Caucasian. She was booked for 417.4 of the Penal Code, which is exhibiting an imitation firearm. She is perceived to be homeless, and there is a perception that she is experiencing mental illness. In regards to that incident, that accounts for the 31st officer-involved shooting year to date. Last year, that number was 32. We've had a total of 14 officer-involved shootings that involve a fatality today. But up to today, last year, that number was a total of 13. In regards to transitioning over to our crime picture, violent crime, I'm happy to report, and property crime numbers continue to incrementally improve week over week. Our total violent crime is a 2.8% increase. We have 5 fewer homicides this year than we did last year. The violent crime increase is a reduction from a 3.1% increase last week. Similarly, in our property crime, last week we showed a 9.6% increase in property crime. That number has now been reduced to 9.3%. Overall, we are now below an 8% increase with a 7.7% overall Part 1 increase. Last week, that number was 8% even. Most notably is this last week, we saw a significant reduction in the number of shooting victims. We now have 64 fewer shooting victims year to date. That's a 5.1% increase. I'm sorry, 5.1% decrease from last year's numbers. So we continue to see our shooting numbers slowly reducing, as well as our overall homicides with 5 fewer. We are also seeing some reductions in the number of our robberies, as well as auto thefts and other property crimes. Yet these rate of increases are against last year's numbers. We still have overall increases in homicides from 2019 of a 45%, and in shooting victims of a 43%. So our work is still very much in front of us to reduce the instances of gun violence, and particularly also the instances of gun trafficking. And we're seeing that particularly in the area of robberies, where many more of our robberies this year versus previous years involve firearms. Moving next to our personnel strength, we did see a slight increase in our overall staffing numbers on sworn deployment at 9,245. That's an increase of 23 from our last reporting to the commission. We also, but we did see a decrease in our personnel strength on civilian side of a reduction of 4 to 2,659. Last week, there was some follow-up discussions regarding the proportionality of where our field forces, how much of the 9,222 personnel were assigned to a field setting versus other investigative settings, administrations, and so forth. So just briefly, I'll give a snapshot of that. Approximately 58% of our personnel, 5,365, are in a uniform position, whether it be a geographic area patrol, our gang units, our traffic investigators, our motor units, our metropolitan division that work, our what we call B and C platoons. Those are teams that work in uniform at the geographic areas. We have approximately 17% of our organization, more than 1,500 personnel that are investigative units. Those investigative units can be homicide details, and can be burglary investigation, robbery investigations, and so forth. Administrative positions, we are counting approximately 10%. And then in training and recruitment, we show 388 of our personnel, and that recognizing that a portion of those are recruits, and then a portion of those are the training staff itself. So I'll be providing to Mr. Teefank, who can distribute to the commissioners these pie charts and the added information that I'm provided in greater detail. And of course, there's much more granular work available in this area as well, based on any questions you might have in regards to distribution of our personnel. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions or take your comments.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Soboroff, any questions for the Chief of Police? No. Commissioner Bonner, sir.
No, just wanted to say I appreciate the breakdown that you just provided, and we'll look forward to the information that's going to be distributed. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bonner. And of course, I think we all join in expressing our condolences for the passing of the El Monte Police Chief. Thank you for attending that service, Chief Moore. With that, Madam Secretary, would you kindly open public comment, please?
Okay, our first speaker is Betty Lay.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief's report and public comment, please, on an agenda items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay, well, as always, I appreciate and support Chief Moore's report on everything. It's great that little by little percentages are going down slightly. That's promising. Agenda items, I support 3A, B, C, and D. And on public comment, I just keep praying that everything works out with the remaining count on elections and everybody stays safe, healthy, and happy holidays to everyone. And I guess I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have T. Johnson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All of them, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Hello to all and good morning. Chief Moore, thank you for answering my question regarding the long-haul COVID individuals. I appreciate that. I know Commissioner Briggs is absent, but I'll go ahead and speak to him since he can watch this Zoom at a later time. This is going out to all police commissioners. I would like to know why Commissioner Briggs has provided data from July 2022 from the Los Angeles County Health Department for September 2022 and October 25th, 2022, when that was not the current situation. Can we please get some answers for these? There is data from the CDC published on September 2nd, 2022 that is in direct conflict with his words. Governor Newsom published data saying the state is equipped with everything they need to combat COVID. Why does the city of LA continue to extend this so-called state of emergency? Where is the money the city received going to? Because it's not for COVID-related issues. The CDC said LA County is in the low and Newsom has a stockpile of supplies. Every week, Chief Moore provides his COVID update, and every week the vaccinated sickness rate is tremendously higher than unvaccinated. Why doesn't anyone sitting here ever question or comment on these outrageous numbers? Sounds like a huge level of fraud taking place by city officials. Seems like nothing has changed. I would like for all of you to actually go and read the public comments regarding COVID and provide us with factual proof that contradicts anything that was posted. The numbers and sources are all listed for you to see. Please come back next week and actually speak about the comments that have been posted. I appreciate everybody's time and be safe out there. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have caller ending 1264.
Hello,
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
the chief's report and public comment.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on my area, which is the Foothill Division area. The police officers seem to be just allowing crime to just kind of just happen in my community. And they don't see it as crime, but it's getting worse. We got a lot of gang graffiti because of the vendors that are blocking the public right of way, which is violating the federal handicapped violation. And this happens on Sunday. This is during church. This should not be allowed. And we're not getting enforcement on that. And also, we have homeless people that are in vehicles smoking meth, it looks like. And for some reason, the police cannot do anything about that. And there's a school right there. And it seems like they're criminalizing our neighborhoods instead of making them safe. So, and there's no way to really talk to that division because I've had several meetings with them and nothing changes. It actually gets worse. So we need to take care of that. And please, you guys are all we got, you know, it's either you or the gangs. So please do something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Esther.
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chief Moore, for attending the Sunland Tujunga Neighborhood Council meeting last Wednesday for the entire 3 hours. Instead of building trust, your surprise appearance left us less trusting of you. It felt like a blindside since none of us knew you were coming. It would have been considerate to give us a heads up so we could be better prepared to ask you well thought out questions. Speaking of being better prepared, did you and the commissioners know on that very same day, Deputy Chief Hamilton Valenzuela, both Foothill captains and several other LAPD officers drove to Monica's Sunland Field office to have an in-person, behind closed doors meeting with the councilwoman before our neighborhood council meeting? Do you find this suspicious? Were they strategizing? Was Monica telling the Foothill captains what she expects from them? Then the next day, Foothill Division has their CPAD meeting, and lo and behold, Deputy Chief Hamilton is at that meeting, which he only attends once in a blue moon. Then on Friday, Chief Moore shows up at Foothill Division for 4 hours and takes the new captain out for lunch. Is this normal? It looks like you are trying to do damage control and sending a message that Foothill Division is under a fine microscope, spending an unusual amount of time, 2 meetings on Wednesday, 1 meeting on Thursday, and 1 meeting on Friday. And the first meeting was with Monica at her office, setting the tone. It looks like you're actively working with Monica against us. We don't believe you, Chief Moore, when you say Monica didn't receive intel about future search warrants. We don't believe you when you say Monica didn't ask you or give input to move Slow Contreras. Why else would you move him? Because of one little complaint 9 months prior? It doesn't add up. Contreras and Captain Smith have everything to lose if they're lying, but you don't have anything to lose because you are protected. The STNC passed a motion to send a letter to you commissioners calling for an investigation, but I'm not entirely sure it will be unbiased and impartial. I wonder if you are all buddy-buddy. For example, do you go to each other's houses for parties? Do you bake pies for each other? Do you go together to the bar and get drunk with co-counsel? Where are the proper checks and balances? We feel ignored, powerless, and patronized. It's bizarre that Monica spearheaded defunding police, but if she ever needs police help, she has Chief Moore on speed dial and he helps her. We, the citizens, don't have that luxury or privilege. It just boggles the mind that Monica can defund you, legislate efforts to dismantle police, but yet she has the ease of getting police help lickety-split with the snap of her fingers. She wins, we lose. Monica's nickname is the Captain Killer, and she barks her orders to captains unlike any other LA City Council member. We citizens spoke up for 10 months regarding Contreras' unjust removal, and we're just getting started regarding Captain Smith's unjust removal. We protested and we're going to continue to protest, and more people are joining us each time. She needs to go.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have caller ending 3146.
I think it says that's unmuted.
Okay, what items would you like to speak on?
Well, I'd like to speak about the chief, public comment, and recruitment.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thanks. I first want to cheer and clap. Yay. Oh, the crowd sound, they didn't kill the girl. But the things I've heard in the past is if that was a black person, they would have been dead, that kind of thing. So, but I want to again talk about the progress that the LAPD has made. Here it is again. thank God, but it is white crime. Person was white, something, maybe they're Italian, I'm not sure. And, I'm hoping it's Mayor Bass, and it's going to be, bye to all 5 of you, basically, from what I heard. But I think that's immature and premature. That should not happen. To lose all 5 of you at one time isn't going to be good. I don't think that that's smart. So, last week, the Brigonometer dude, that guy there, was calling it cronies. That's what I was continue to talk about. It's a wall. These walls of stupidity, walls of cronyism. There's this alliance going on with the chief and the mayor that is not. I mean, I'm not happy about it. I can't do anything about it, but speak on it. You know what I mean? It's like a wall of allegiance, a wall of alignment. There's so many walls here. It's just very very difficult. And you're talking about hiring, and Steve was talking about how, getting people a subsidy for housing, and there's military families on food stamps. I mean, it just makes me cry. It's incredible. I was looking at the meeting from 2020 where you guys were on for 8 hours. You had 500 people logged in. There was they were going to rip your heads off, and there was a problem with the Zoom, and KTLA's video has 1 million hits on that. And you should have 8 hours every month. You should do 8 hours and let everybody talk. Okay. So what was the other ones that were important? The Congress and the president is doing the most damage to the LAPD. There's a real local problem though, like what's going on with Nori, what's happening with other people. What's going on today that are people just like Nori in the government in LA today, still doing this to black people, when black people were talking about how these black communities were being itemized for destruction. Here is another example. They've been telling the truth. Black people have been telling the truth, and the establishment is not listening. Another one I got to say, you didn't take off for MLK. You were supposed to take off for Veterans Day. We got nothing without the Marine Corps. Why are we here today? We should have been off today. We don't need to be off for Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's. We need to be off for Veterans Day. You people suck. They got military families on food stamps today.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Philip Tabby.
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you. I do not support Chief Moore. Since January, we have brought information of corruption at the highest levels to this commission. We have brought an honest voice about the COVID situation for our officers who do not have a voice. And we stood steadfast in asking this commission to bring back the tools needed to protect all persons in the city of Los Angeles, regardless of their color, gender, or creed. The people deserve to be safe, and the appointed chief of police has proven his weak cowardness, putting politics and politicians first. I'm here to tell you that we, the people, will win this war that you decided to wage upon us. We will continue to grow united as one. No shiny badge is going to shut us up, no matter how many bars or stars accompany it. Mike, your cowardice gleamed bright on Wednesday when, unannounced, you showed up and stayed the entire STNC meeting with your staff to intimidate community members. You lied to them and insulted their intelligence. You knew they planned on approving a letter that challenged your huge mistake of removing our captain. To top it off, you and your staff agreed in that meeting to hold coffee with a cop, with the business owner who is in the middle of an FBI investigation with you and soft on crime Monica Rodriguez. Maybe if you didn't push Smith out the door so quickly, valuable information would have been passed on to the new captain. Instead, you, your cronies, and a disgrace of a council member briefed Lozano on only the lies and deceit you're involved in. I have very little hope for a new captain who will do what Monica says. Why would this department want to hold coffee with a cop, with a business owner who has made misogynistic and racist remarks online about other community leaders? Is it because he's a bully like you, Mike? Show me who you walk with, and I'll show you who you are. We will never bend, we will never break, and we will never allow anyone to take advantage of us. Remember, Foothill is number one and always will be. God bless our LAPD. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Ted Trubinsky.
Good morning. All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
In regards to the officer-involved shooting, another false report from the public that there was a civilian armed with a weapon where LAPD shows up and literally shoots her up. Meanwhile, the truth of the matter is it's another unhoused person in a mental health crisis. We're so lucky that LAPD's marksmanship sucks as much as their ability to identify a replica pistol, because you almost murdered another victim of this ruthless city. Bonner, are we counting this as a mental health crisis that was escalated into violence? Or are we tracking this as what the victim was being charged with? Item 3C, $20,000 sounds way too much for a Christmas party. 3D, $4,400 also sounds too much for a corrupt Hollywood area Christmas party. The reason I say it's corrupt is because I need to go back to last week with the news that broke about Corey Palka. We need an agency to look into all sexual assaults that were reported while Corey Palka was the captain of Hollywood. We need an investigation into everything Palka and everyone who worked under him touched. In addition to that, we should be firing with no benefits whoever Palka's commanding officer was. The lack of oversight and accountability comes from the top down. That accountability needs to come now. The police can't fix problems of sexual assault and rape. That is why we continue to call for the defunding of the police. This problem wasn't a personal one. It was just another example of a rotten apple suggesting that the whole barrel is bad. The fact that the LAPD provided a structural shield for a VIP like Moonves speaks to how much more dangerous police intervention makes it for victims of survivors of sexual assault. The arrogance, self-importance, and smugness that he displayed with correspondences to Metros, Schwartz, and Moonves is typical of how LAPD officers act. It is a model of leadership that under officers follow. It is a rotten department that is unreformable. I say this having accompanied a victim of rape to the Hollywood station in 2019 as they tried to report, and was met with Trump literally on Fox News. Totally inappropriate as they gave their report in the waiting room of the station. Please end the 45-minute time limit, move the meeting so that they don't conflict with city council. I yield the rest of my time. This is a joke.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Machos Kadane.
Hello?
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
All of them, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Yeah, on the chief's report, I'm so glad this white woman wasn't killed by LAPD. But as a prior caller said, it's worth noting that we've seen Black men shot for much, much less. It's especially ironic to hear this veneration of veterans come from Chief Moore, but no mention of Jermaine Petit, who was shot in Leimert Park for having an actuator and who was an unarmed veteran. So just goes to show that, LAPD, while venerating veterans, remains hostile and hateful to Black people and murderous to Black people, as is the norm. And yeah, just to initially talk about this oversight, surveillance technology oversight system that we first saw come into play last week with the approval of these robot dogs. We knew it was going to be complete bullshit, but I think the amount of performative objection that we saw from Kalanche and this obfuscation of the robot dogs is something less than like a dystopian nightmare was something that caught me by surprise. I didn't think it was going to be this fake and this bad, to the extent where the LAPD actually avoided showing demonstration footage of how it would be applied for police when presenting the item. needless to say, we're trying to paint this as something the LAPD needs to keep us safe, when really it's just plainly an egregious, a wasteful, a horrific addition to the LAPD's arsenal. It's going to be used on primarily Black people, and that wasn't discussed at all. It's bullshit. And then there are a lot of, obviously donations on the docket today. And I think it's worth noting that these donations through the Los Angeles Police Foundation do largely come from corporations. And, someone just said something about the LAPD being a shield for VIPs. And that's actually the norm. And I think a nice little example of that is Target as a corporation, which has donated, Palantir to the LAPD, a software, a data aggregation system that's been banned by a lot of cities for $200,000. And that actually is something that Target does across the country. Amy Klobuchar, when she was a top prosecutor, actually talked about how, Target donates these things, but they don't just give us money, is what she says. They demand accountability. And so, this is something we saw here in LA with Chief Moore allocating LAPD officers to Target, giving them priority during the George Floyd uprisings, having a really cozy relationship with their senior manager, Mahogany Eller. We've seen those email exchanges. And that just goes to show that LAPD is not here to keep us safe. They're here to protect the elite few, the corporate interests, the Les Moonveses of the world, and they're racist as fuck. And the 45-minute time limit, this commission's a joke. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Steve Rogers.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
First, I'd like to thank our veterans for their service, all veterans, and I'd like to thank the LAPD, especially the patrol officers, for their service in very difficult times where they receive very little support from elected officials and even from the chief and command staff. And the chief talked about, well, he accepts input from the community. Input from who exactly? And let me use the Orwellian phrase, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. That means he's listening to certain people about assignments. Okay, this just hasn't happened in the Foothill situation. This has happened for a long time. And so I'll give you an example. Business improvement districts, okay, and the people who have security companies that may be offering jobs to LAPD sergeants working Crow offices in Central Division later on. There is a certain very chummy relationship that develops. It develops and it takes precedence over protecting and serving the people. LAPD should be serving all the people equally, regardless of financial status, race, political persuasion, or anything else. To protect and serve means to protect everyone equally. If you're not doing that, that's a form of corruption. The department is rife at the upper levels and in the system with corruption and racism. You divide people by race constantly. That's a form of racism. What I said last week, it doesn't matter if a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. It doesn't matter what the race of the officer is or the gender or any other superficial characteristic. Can the person do the job? When the people call 911, they need officers responding who can do the job. Everyone should be evaluated on that basis. Can you do the job or not? That is just common sense. And that is also part of a meritocracy. Instead, what we have in the LAPD is a culture of mediocrity where you are obsessed with identity politics. We even have diversity, inclusion, and equity, which I call DIE, because the department is dying. Diversity, code for non-white, let's be honest. Inclusion of who? The homosexual agenda? You have a whole unit for that now. Is that really important? Does it make a difference? It shouldn't. Equity, that's a word straight out of communism. What the heck does that mean? Guaranteed results? That's not American. That's not what we want. Again, there's much to be done. It doesn't matter if the cat is black or white, and let's hope the new mayor can do a good job.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Javier. Javier, you're on. Okay, moving on. Next, we have Elisa Avalos.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, what items would you like to speak on?
All of them, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Yes, I would like to start off. What are you guys doing for outreach to get more officers? Because where I live in Foothills Division area in Pacoima, there's been 3 events, and I have not seen a booth saying become an officer. I haven't seen officers talking to community about becoming officers. And when I go and talk to people about becoming officers, the first thing they tell me, not only in my community, but it's embarrassing that in other communities, in other districts, they tell me this. How do you expect someone to become an officer when your councilwoman wants to defund us? You have no support. And it's true. How is it that you guys are not doing outreach? I'm not an officer, but if you guys need a volunteer or something, let me know. Now, another thing, I'm very disappointed with the chief. Thank you for going on Wednesday to the neighborhood council meeting and finally someone showing some kind of respect to the neighborhood councils, because they do a lot of work and they don't get paid for it. And they should be thankful for this. But you should have gave them a heads up, chief. The same way you wouldn't like someone showing up to your meeting and just barging in. Another thing, I'm very disappointed that you're gonna have coffee with the cops with Arnie. When I was running for city council, he said racist remarks about me and no one stood up for me. None of you guys, but you guys are quick to hold Nuri and everyone else accountable. But what about Monica? That's one of her biggest donors, and that's who she gave the heads up that there was going to be a search warrant in his illegal pot shop. Now you guys are going to go and have a coffee with the cops there? There's nowhere else you guys could have done it. And I have the proof. So if any of you guys want to see it, let me know. But this is very shameful. You guys are all we have. And look at what you guys are doing. When are you guys going to have town hall meetings? Another thing, I'm sorry. Captain Smith was the only one that stood up for me and said, Arnie, that's racist. No one else did. When he was a captain, for the first time ever in my life, crime rate went down. So I hope you guys pay attention now with the new captain. And if you, Chief, you do all the decisions on your own, then why is it that Monica Rodriguez is the chair of safety? So you don't listen to anything that she has to tell you, and you need Spanish translation. I'm very disappointed.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Hamid Khan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All of them.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay, I wanted to talk about this whole fraud that continues to be week after week in every meeting, and for years now, that is the Los Angeles Police Foundation. Started back in the late 90s as a way to support cops. This has become over time pretty much a way of, I would say, even money laundering, that how rich people, how corporations, how this has become a way to literally create addiction for this department by going to these big companies and getting monies to introduce these various tools of harm. The earlier Martio spoke about Palantir, and then we can go on and on with Taser International, which then became Axon, and with Motorola, and the money that goes through, which then end up becoming line items So now we are stuck with millions and millions of dollars of these budget line items that were just gotten through these corporations, which, you know, just toys for boys. So they can have their own frat parties and, you know, just go out and go on killing sprees of people and surveil people and trace and track and stalk people constantly. On top of that, you know, this is also a way that how developers who obviously were sitting in Los Angeles, where it's all about land, and this is something that we in detail exposed in our report, Automating Banishment, the surveillance and policing of looted land, is where, you know, how, you know, you have the Carusos of the world who's running for the mayor. You have several other developers who have been very much a part and parcel of donating money. And what do they get? They get special preferences. They get special treatments. We just saw what happened with this captain rubbing shoulders with the Hollywood's who's who and everything else. So it is really important for people of Los Angeles to start questioning and exposing the corruption and the funneling of money that is happening through the police foundation. So, and we are onto it. And of course, you know, we're going to keep on exposing this corruption. We're going to exposing that how this is such a vehicle for engaging in harm and providing the tools of harm to the LAPD. Secondly, I want to talk about this whole facade and fraud of Special Order 11, where Decker and TFANG had to go to Oakland to recruit a person, a police consultant, and then present it as a community perspective. I mean, this is, we talk about all the corruption, we talk about conspiracies, we talk, you know, people talk about Nuri and everybody else, but the real conspiracies and corruption and backdoor deals and special interests, this was a classic example that everybody in Los Angeles, everybody, and you have letters from organizations and people rejected this proposal, but you had to go where now we have documented emails where he was told, Brian Hofer, to act as a community perspective. So this is the.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mark Dutton.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All.
Okay, 3 minutes.
All right, thank you for letting me speak. You know, I had a lot of things written down that I wanted to say, but I cannot express enough of my support for the 4 people that already said it all. Phil, Cheryl, Steve, and Elisa. They are representing the frustration by all of us, and especially people who fear coming on these meetings and expressing their opinions, or have just completely lost faith in the commission. So thank you to you for brave and truthful people. You are very supported by pretty much everyone I speak to in our community. So regarding the robot dog, it just brings up these images of Black Mirror and dystopian futuristic sci-fi movies that I've seen. But I understand, look, I want to be open-minded about that. I understand that we need to improve safety for officers, you know, going into a house or doing whatever. I'm all for that. Also, that hopefully will improve public safety for the people, you know, for the people that they're going after, are the people in the building or the house. So if there's a way, I don't think it's so much a suspicion of law enforcement from me as it is a suspicion of tech, corporate tech, and this takeover of technology of everyone's humanity. Like, nobody trusts these people anymore. And whenever we hear something like this, it just gives us visions of you know, a Terminator. So if there is some way to enforce and transparently communicate, you know, safety consideration and oversight, you know, mandate oversight for those kinds of things, I think it'd be a little less ominous for the rest of us. It was a bit of a surprise for me to hear about that. You know, I hadn't heard any very rumblings about that before this. So, you know, we're going to keep fighting for the people, for the great unwashed. That's who we are. That's what law enforcement's supposed to be there for. I know most of our officers believe that, support that. I know they all feel, a lot of them feel this way. They are community members also. So let's, you know, bridge this gap between upper brass and police and community. This is just dysfunctional. It's dangerous. It's dysfunctional. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. It eats away at morale, public morale, officer morale. Come on, guys, please. Let's get on the same team here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Zach Sherwin.
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Yeah, just so I don't fail to say it during my call, I just want to open by saying shame on all of you commissioners, Bonner and Decker, and the ones who aren't here. Just shame on you for doing what you're doing. Whatever you've accomplished in your lives that led you to get appointed to this commission, your actions over the past few years during your terms should bring you shame. But I won't waste more time on this point because you've demonstrated very clearly that you are shameless. I want to speak to the fact that Ryan Lee's out of policy ruling was overturned and that he's back on the job and perhaps even been promoted and just out there being a cop again. And how I continue to be sickened and outraged by it. Commissioners, you don't do anything about it. You don't even mention it in this meeting, let alone voice disapproval. I know that this commission is doing what it was built to do by covering this stuff up and letting inertia and the constant onslaught of agendas that happen at this fast pace week after week without any institutional follow-up from you. I know you're sort of letting that process run its course. And it's too bad that the public has to be, the ones who are naming this. But so yeah, again, I know you're just doing what you were put here to do, stooges, tools, lackeys, flunkies, but it doesn't make it any less sickening or shameful. Chief Moore, you said about the Corey Palka situation, quote, "What is most appalling is the alleged breach of trust, blah, blah, blah. This erodes the public trust." This nationally reported story is what causes you to rise to the occasion and express the fact that you're appalled, Chief. And of the leaked city council audio, which was also national use, you said that it, quote, "hurts me to my core." Where is your pain and your disgust when LAPD officers shoot a man in the back and get off scot-free? Why aren't you appalled and hurt to your core when LAPD blows up a city block? Do you feel appalled and hurt when your officers rough up journalists at abortion rights protests? I looked up your comments when an LAPD SWAT officer got caught on a body cam earlier this year saying happy hunting. And you said, Chief, quote, "It's a disturbing remark." I took high school English. You expressed that in the passive voice because you are passive and weak and a coward. Commissioners, even if a new mayor replaces all of you, this board will never do what it supposedly exists to do. Be the citizens' voice in police affairs. What citizens do you purport to be the voice of? The 5 of you? Do what you can to make these meetings more accessible. Even though you've been for 2 years forcing us to comment before the agenda happens, it doesn't mean it's not absurd on its face. You never acknowledge the emails that people send in. I send one weekly. The only times Briggs ever mentioned them is when one commissioner got called out for his corruption. Shame on you all. The death of Grishario Mack is on your hands. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Javier. Javier, you're on. Okay, we'll move on. Next, we have caller ending 8103.
Hello?
Hi, what
Hello?
item?
Yes. All available comments, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Yes, very briefly. I'm very disappointed that the Police Foundation continues to donate tons of money to the LAPD, and yet the LAPD has the biggest budget in all of the city of Los Angeles, and yet crime has not gone down, and yet the LAPD does not do a good job of patrolling our streets. So I'm very upset with Chief Moore, and I told Chief Moore during the Neighborhood of Congress a couple of months ago that your officers in all states have to do a better job. They're getting paid $250,000 each, plus or minus, with benefits, salaries, and yet crime is still ongoing. And you officers keep telling us, oh, we need to raise taxes to pay for officers' rent subsidy and equipment and more officers, and yet nothing changes. There's so much scandals with the LAPD, and I tried to tell Chief Moore many times using statistics, criminology, and research, and yet the department still continues to get involved in problems. And the LAPD commissioner should do a better job of keeping the LAPD chief, including Chief Moore, in check. And Steve Soberall has been accused in the past of being undermined by the LAPD Protective League. And I think Mr. Soberall should resign, and we should hire more youthful commissioners, people with a degree in sociology, criminology, or public sector management, because we cannot stand the status quo no longer. I had enough of this problems that we're experiencing with LA, and we need reforms, transformation, and restructuring of the LAPD from top to bottom. Thank you. I use my balance of my time.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have caller ending 7543. Oh, they just dropped out.
Madam Secretary, it looks like that's the end of the people in the queue, so we will move on. Thank you. We will now move to consent agenda items. Colleagues, there's been a slight change since the original agenda, and that is that with respect to item 3C, within 3C, the item for steering wheel locks has been taken off the agenda and will come back at a later date. So for all the remaining items on 3A, B, C, and D, are there any requests from commissioners to hold an item for questioning? I see no requests, so then I will move forward to move the matter forward, and I move that we accept the items as indicated on the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, it passes.
Madam Vice
3-0.
President,
Yes, sir.
I believe
Yes.
the $20,000 donation there may exceed the commission's acceptance limit. I'm asking staff to confirm the amount because it increases with various cost of living numbers.
I'm
If
sorry,
so,
I'm sorry, Mr. City Attorney, which item are you requesting?
3C, there's a $20,000 donation within the 3C.
Okay.
The cap, the last I recall, is somewhere around 17,000 for the commission. So the only ask I'm making is that with respect to that item, if it does exceed the amount, that it would be transmitted to City Council for acceptance.
Oh, correct. So what if I, Mr. City Attorney, just amend the motion as to 3C?
I'll second the friendly amendment.
Just let me be sure that's the correct procedure.
That is correct.
Okay.
You can go ahead and in the same motion, you can go ahead and rescind the prior one and just make a new motion.
Okay, so let me just start. Thank you. I'm going to start over. Commissioners, for items, let me just start with items 3A, B, and D. I'm going to move those forward for acceptance as written. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Now let me move to item 3C, and just for clarity, indicate that the steering wheel lock has been removed, and I move then that we accept the department's report and accept the donation and move the items to City Council as needed. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Commissioner Soberov, yes?
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry.
Thank you. That is approved as well, 3-0. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney, appreciate that. Now we'll move on to the regular agenda items, item 4A. And I'd ask the board secretary to please bring forward the department representatives relative to this home garaging audit.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi, great you can hear me. As you know, my name is Elizabeth Rhodes. I'm the Director of the Office of Constitutional Policing and Policy. And I think you know the Acting Police Administrator 1, Sharon Sargent, over Audit Division, and Police Administrator 3, Anne-Marie Sauer-Hale. I would also like to introduce to you Sergeant Cynthia Chow, who worked on this audit. And with that, I'll leave it to Ms. Sargent to give you a brief overview.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm here to share with you a brief overview of the home garaging audit. This was conducted by Audit Division as part of the 2021 annual audit plan. There's certain assignments in the city that are authorized to drive a city vehicle off hours and garage that vehicle in a different location other than the primary work site. Audit Division looked at the forms, approvals, and deadlines associated with this process. As a quick reminder, commands submit requests for these vehicles by February 1st to the Home Garaging Review Committee. This committee reviews the list and approves it before forwarding it to the Chief of Police and the commissioners for final review. For this audit, Audit Division looked at whether or not the forms were completed and whether or not they adhered to that February 1st deadline. So the report shows that the department did quite well overall. Of the 13 areas that were assessed, 10 of those had compliance rates of 91% to 100%. There was one area that was 87% compliance, and this had to do with approval summary forms. And it was due to the fact that a handful of those forms could not be located. There were two other areas of lower compliance. One was 68% compliance, and this involved not having at least 10 emergency callouts per year. 10 is the number required for maintaining a home garaging authority. And the other area was a 40% compliance, which involved a form called the Home Garaging Vehicle Log. This is a running log that each command has where an employee completes this when they use a city vehicle, mainly for emergency callouts. The department policy says that there should be a single monthly log for each authorized vehicle, and that's regardless of the number of drivers. In some cases, auditors found that some of the monthly logs were missing, which may have meant that they didn't have any callouts for that particular month. And in other cases, there were multiple logs completed for a single vehicle. And that's likely due to the fact that some commands actually share cars, so there's more than one driver. Audit Division did meet with Administrative Services Bureau, who's the entity that is in charge of managing this program, and ASB felt that these items could be rectified by clarifying department policy. ASB is in general agreement with the audit's findings, and we are here to answer any additional questions if the board has any.
Thank you. Greatly appreciated. Mr. Soboroff, your mic's open. Did you have questions, sir?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Bonner, did you have questions?
Yes, I had a couple, please. First question, and most of them relate to the objective 4, I believe. But my first question is, did this indicate what is the total number of vehicles, being garaged at home? I was trying to add up the numbers that I saw on pages 5 and 6, but I don't think that's the right number. But what is the total number of vehicles in the home garaging?
I believe it's about 1048 for this particular audit for this year.
Okay, and it's just for the snapshot in time, if you will, for the period that you looked at.
It was the fiscal year of 2020, 2021.
Got it. Okay. Just as a side note to the chief or whomever, I'm just asking for someone also to, not relevant to the decision today, but for someone to provide that information as how many vehicles are garaged at home. So that's one request. Then with regard to the objective number 4, and this was, I think, the one where there was the lowest level of compliance on the maintaining those vehicle logs. Is that accurate?
Yes, I mean, we are in agreement that they were not submitted, and that is the responsibility of each commanding officer. So, I mean, you see in the audit, the breakdown of the entities that failed to submit those, so.
Right, yeah, and what I'm wanting to understand is, I think it was the 27 of the 51 missing logs. Again, that's just the snapshot in time relevant to the sample that you looked at from 2020, right? So as we sit here today, that number could be greater or it could be lower. Is that
Correct. That was based on, yes, the sample size they used.
okay? And then was there, in terms of the recommendations, I saw the recommendation 6, which was about clarifying the exemptions to cover the detective command officers, I believe. But was there a recommendation on this issue? Like, how do you get that number? How do you get greater compliance on these vehicle logs across the board?
There was not a specific recommendation, I don't believe, related to that. Unless audit division has something they want to add, but no, there wasn't a specific recommendation. It's just sometimes getting people to submit paperwork can be a challenge. And frankly, with, I mean, this is kind of an issue throughout the department, frankly, with staffing, I think over the course of the last year, I've had 3 different people working on home garaging. So it's not that we have some dedicated expert where we can track it and, be on commands every month and say, hey, we didn't get this. That's just the harsh reality of staffing currently.
But
I'm sorry?
Commissioner Bonner, understanding your concern, we can work on, sort of a fix to bring that number up and report back to you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful to understand really what, at least even what effort is being made or can be made or should be made, particularly given how low the number of compliance or level of compliance is, or at least was in this snapshot in time. So yeah, it would be helpful to understand whether, because otherwise what it appears is that we're acknowledging that there's a low level of compliance, we're approving the audit report, and we're moving on, just accepting the fact that in any given year, some 40% of people or whatever that number is may be completing these logs. So it would be helpful, I think, to, since one purpose of the audit is to pinpoint deficiencies in the process and structure, then it would be helpful to make sure that we're doing something at least to improve that number.
Agreed, and we can work on that.
I was going to say, certainly our next general staff will remind commanding officers and we can continue to remind people.
Appreciate that.
And Commissioner, points well taken. This is a paper process. It is multiple entry points, but what we learn from these audits is also to re-inspect. Audit division is kind of an alert, if you will, that these are ongoing administrative systems that occur across the entire organization and should be routine and should be a high level of compliance. When an audit such as this identifies a shortfall, then that's a alert, if you will. And then at the general staff meeting, but also those commands that were out of compliance on this, we'll ask for them to show us that they've reached full compliance in a forward period. And that will be reported back up through their chain of command so that we understand that if systems broke down because of change of personnel, because of lack of personnel, people took their eye off the ball in regards to this audit or this reporting standard every 28 days. We fix that by bringing attention to it and then ensuring that we gain full compliance by people's compliance with it.
And when, by the way, when would we, because I think what we're doing is you're indicating that there will be some efforts to get that number up. But of course, this isn't something that's audited on an ongoing basis, and I'm certainly not suggesting that. But how would we know, or how and when would we have the assurance that there is some improvement in performance?
Well, certainly, Mr. Rhodes.
No, sorry. Well, Commissioner, we are aware that we've had a backlog in audits. And we are moving towards a system of more inspections, more frequent inspections, and more targeted inspections rather than large audits, so that the time frame can move more quickly. And we can, even though it's not in the annual audit plan and maybe shouldn't necessarily be, I think targeting objective 4, 4A and B is something that we can do an inspection on. And maybe a couple of quick inspections so that we get compliance up and we use this audit as really to pinpoint a problem, to do inspections and to therefore report back to the commission what we have done and how we have changed the process, or at least changed the compliance rate by showing or by basically shedding light on this as an issue and getting the commands to understand its importance.
Got it. And would the follow up on that, is that something we need to make a note of to ask, or would it naturally, would some form of follow-up come to us on the natural.
So an inspection doesn't necessarily have to come to the commission, but seeing your interest, I think I can work with Mr. Tiefenk to make sure that it does come to the commission. It sounds like that would be a helpful follow-up for you.
Yeah, sure. It could come to the commission, or you could send it to me. Doesn't matter. But I mean, given the low level of compliance on this particular issue, I think it would be helpful to make sure that I appreciate and understand and appreciate what you're saying, that you're going to address it through inspection. So it's, seems appropriate, but also if you just, so we have the assurance of that follow through, it'd be helpful. In whatever way. Again, if somebody wants to just, send a note whenever some inspections occur and just tell us when that, how that's playing out, that's fine with me. If the commission, wants to hear, maybe the chief will mention it in a report, whatever it is. I don't want to make too much of it, other than the fact that it would be appreciated to make sure we have some follow-up.
Sure, I'll work with them. I'll work through Mr. Tiefenk.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonner. Just a follow-up to the team. My question is related to the 10 emergency call-outs per year and the assessment and the recommendation. I see the recommendation, but is there also going to be an evaluation of whether the individuals who are not going out on 10 or more emergency calls out a year need the vehicle, and conversely, whether perhaps the policy should be, they may need it for other business-related reasons that are important. So the question is, are you either going to look at whether all the people who have cars who are not going out on that number of emergency calls really need the vehicle, and or whether the policy should be expanded to include individuals who otherwise have a legitimate city business purpose for having those vehicles, just so that there's consistency between actuality and the policy.
Right. I mean, at this point, as we work with OCPP on the policy change, it would be to ensure that the policy and the forms and everything align. But if we are finding that there are situations where perhaps people do need it for other business, we can certainly, include that discussion as we make the changes. But at this point, the plan was to go with the 10. I'm trying to think if there's a situation where somebody has demonstrated that they've got these other needs. Again, the focus being on call outs, because again, you're taking this car home every day versus, during the day, right? A Monday through Friday situation where they're at work.
Right.
So,
but I'm just suggesting that if people aren't going out on 10 calls, you've already determined that they're not going out on 10 emergency calls per year. Now, there may be a reason, maybe there was, specialized circumstances involving that time period, but it strikes me that there's just not alignment between the policy and the reality. So either cars need to be taken away from those people, or a policy needs to be reevaluated. At least that's my reading of the audit. There may be a different reading you have, which is why I'm asking the question.
If I could weigh in on this, this is one of the challenges that the Home Garaging Authority Committee has. This 10 bright line standard is meant for when they come forward and report this previous year, we had 6 call outs or we had 16 call outs, is to understand the utility of that vehicle, either being home garage, meaning going to the employee's place of residence in a secure setting, or satellite parked. This Home Garaging authorities also apply to vehicles being parked at a location such as another department facility or some site that's secure, not necessarily the employee's home. What the committee looks at is, are there off-hour emergency callouts, but also does the employee start at a different work location? And an employee, rather than coming all the way downtown, for instance, to check in, the employee may actually start maybe working on narcotic task force or a specialized detail that's out in the San Fernando Valley or some other part of the city. Are they traveling, and is there an economy of scale where the employee is allowed to have a start off-site? These are challenges that I look to the employee, the Home Garaging Authority, which is made up of staff officers, to articulate. And then each year we approve these authorities, and there are instances in which it's not early or adjusted start watches, it's not remote settings, And there are, the justification for this authority no longer exists. And that's where the scale is.
Understood. So then, Chief, is the answer that this is being looked at to determine if there's alignment between the policy and the reality?
Yes, and that the expectations of the 10 is a barometer of the utility of that vehicle. It is not a yes or no. This audit isn't valuable to go and look at the ones that didn't meet it and ensure that there is that type of articulation. When people each year they have to submit their home garaging authority requests through a bureau up through the chain of command, and there should be articulations when they're not meeting that threshold of why the authority is still in the best interest of the department.
Understood, and that is important because obviously only those who need the vehicles should have access to them. I'm just concerned about the alignment, right, between what the policy is and what the audit has at least indicated. And I would appreciate follow up on that as well. Similar to Commissioner Bonner, it need not come back to the full commission. I'd like to just understand the plan going forward on that. And Commissioner Briggs and I can decide if, it's worthy of a further conversation at full commission, but I think that's, I would find that helpful. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any further questions on this issue? See no hands, no indication, then I will move that we adopt the department's report. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It passes. Seeing no further matters on the commission agenda for today, I will move that we proceed to adjournment. Is that motion seconded?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We stand adjourned until the next scheduled board meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.